When starting an open source tool, it's very important to understand, is the problem you are trying to solve, is it like big enough and developers can relate to it, right? So like if I have somebody else from the other part of the world invest his time creating a pull request, investigating the code base, what's his motivation, right? This is a problem he experienced himself previously in previous companies. So first of all, for us, it was very important to understand, like, is the problem deep enough and relatable enough to build a community around it? You know, building an open source community is really similar to gardening, I would say, in some point. You know, you have to create the right environment around the open source community, and you cannot force it, right? You cannot say, oh, I will put twice as much water on my plants. And, you know, you started a startup, you kind of try to invest in the core product areas. We didn't have billing on the platform in the beginning, but we had a pricing page. It's like, we were still not charging you money for it, but, you know, we are building this and we created these expectations from the beginning. We want to create value in the communication and messaging space, right? How can we provide the best experience for, you know, our customers and users, right? And how can we create an experience that maybe only the big companies like Facebook or Google investing, you know, millions of dollars and huge teams solving. So this is, I would say, you know, like identifying what are the best practices. One of the biggest problems I've seen is that
This season, we've got an incredible lineup of Dev GTM leaders who have scaled some of the biggest developer first companies. We'll be diving deep into what's working in the DevTool GTM today, what's broken, and what are some of the bold bets shaping the future. And what better way to kick off this season than hosting my first guest, Dima Grossman, founder of Novu and a serial entrepreneur. Dima's journey is anything but traditional. Before building Novu, he played bass, trained as a chef, and even studied to be a wine sommelier. And now he's solving one of the biggest headaches for developers: notifications. In this episode, we'll talk about his journey as a 3-time founder, how Novu became one of the fastest growing open source projects, and what it really takes to turn open source traction into a business. So let's dive right into it. Dima, welcome to our podcast. It's great to have you here.
likewise, thank you so much, Disha. Happy to be here.
Great. So, Dima, I would love to begin by understanding the story behind Novu. How would you describe Novu to someone who's never heard of it?
Yeah, so we're basically building an open source notification infrastructure platform, and basically to enable our users and our customers who are building products to add notifications to their systems easily.
Sure.
So we offer a range of functionalities, but the core of it is that we have an inbox component which you can easily add to your product with just like a 3 or 4 lines of code. And you know, the inbox component is really powered behind by a really like capable system that can deliver notifications across multiple channels. It can handle things like user preferences and kind of, you know, decide whether should we deliver or not. And also an orchestration engine that tells, okay, should we deliver it now? Should maybe we wait a little bit later? And really the goal for us was, how can we make sure that, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to notifications, which is something we have done multiple times in our previous companies, always to provide it as an off-the-shelf system that developers can use and adopt.
Sure. So these are very interesting problem to solve. What sort of attracted you towards this space, and what is the moment when you realized that there was a gap here and the world needed Novu?
In our previous businesses, we kind of ended up in the same situation where we needed to communicate with our customers, right? And it's not only about the marketing type of communication, which there is a lot of tools out there, you know, like the, you know, HubSpots, MailChimps of the world, when you can do marketing automation, and they're doing a fantastic job. And we're still using some of them inside of Novel. But when it came to the more transactional type of notifications where, you know, users on our platform want to interact with each other between themselves, or maybe the system wants to interact with the users, this is where a lot of challenges came in, and we had to build this from scratch. And we've been looking, online, and we've never found like a good platform that is capable enough and customizable enough to fit those needs. And after building this for the third time, we decided, we need to stop this. And this is like the idea of Novo really came out on a whiteboard somewhere on our second company. And we kind of had this idea, what if it could be an external system which we can just use? We had this fantastic whiteboard session. We put it all out, and then we forgot about it for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years. And then it came back to be when we were looking for, our next journey, and it was kind of came up very quickly about, we're both passionate about communication, developer tooling. So it was a very kind of intuitive thing for us to do.
Very interesting story. So Dima, you also, you decided to build Novo open source. Wanted to understand what led you to actually build it open source, and how has that shaped both your product and your business?
Yeah. So both Tomer and myself, and Tomer is my co-founder for the past 10 years now, we both been involved in the open source community for quite a while. And actually, Novo didn't start as open source initially, right? We actually thought when we started like the first ideation phases, we actually thought that Novo is something, the product managers will actually adopt and use, and maybe they will buy it. And our first POC was really around kind of a no-code tool, which product managers can adapt and use. And we quickly learned it's not really the direction. We hit a lot of walls. Product managers are guardians of focus inside of the company. So if it's not the perfect timing, they will just know it's not for us right now. And then on the other hand, also once the timing was good, we ended up in a position where we've been handed over from the product manager to the engineering teams. We can build this over a weekend. It was a very defensive position. So we ended up like in this phase for almost, I would like, a few months, into this, we realized, okay, this is not the direction we should head into. Also, budget was very tough with product teams. There is no like specified budget to work against. So it was kind of alarms from all over the place. And we did a pivot, and we decided, okay, we are both, Tomer and myself are both engineers and in our kind of core, and we're builders deep inside. And we started to kind of play with the idea about pitching this to engineers and trying to say, hey, like, here is our concept. Do you like relate to that? Have you had a chance to build something like this previously? And we had really fantastic feedback from engineers and developers and CDOs and like technical personas inside the organization. Is like, if you would been here, like 1 year ago, you have saved us so much time. And we saw this spark of there is a relatable problem to it. Right? Open source is getting those ideas, communicating with different developers, and in the end building this result. So for us, really, open source was, we decided that if we want to solve this, we cannot do it ourselves, basically, and that's how we ended up in the open source journey.
Also, I think you've built a fantastic GitHub community. You already have around 40,000 stars. What worked best, when getting there? How were you able to get your initial traction?
Yeah, so to me, it all starts with a pain point, right? So when starting an open source tool, it's very important to understand, is the problem you are trying to solve, is it like big enough and developers can relate to it, right? So like if I have somebody else from the other part of the world invest his time creating a pull request, investigating the code base, what's his motivation, right? This is a problem he experienced himself previously in previous companies. So first of all, for us, it was very important to understand, like, is the problem deep enough and relatable enough to build a community around it? So once you have this core element, to me, building an open source community is really similar to gardening, I would say, in some point. You have to create the right environment around the open source community, and you cannot force it, right? You cannot say, oh, I will put twice as much water on my plants and they will grow faster. It's not working like this. And you have to be patient, and you have to kind of clean from time to time, provide the right environment, the right lighting, the right kind of attitude, and really support. But you cannot force it also on the other hand. So we're kind of this is something that was constantly in our conversations in the early days, and even still is, we are the gardeners of this thing. We cannot control it. It have its own life. We can just support it and create guidance around it, so it won't become a jungle, hopefully, on the other side.
But that brings to me to the next question, that building open source adoption in itself is tough, but then one of the real challenges, how do you move towards monetization, and still stay true to the community that you've built? So how have you been able to navigate that?
Yeah, so I think, we're not the first one, right, who are doing that. And we've been looking at playbooks from different types of companies. So you obviously have to make, for us, obviously, as a for-profit company, we're not a charity, and we're looking to find a sustainable model for us to be able to invest more time and energy into the project, but also, on the other hand, provide the value and keeping true to the open source core kind of principle we had since the early days. And there are different models out there. There is like the open core, there is support type based. And if you look at companies like Red Hat or Elastic or Mongo, there is a bunch of playbooks. The one thing that we are doing is obviously, you can self-host Novo, run it inside of your own premises, but we also offer a specific capability set that is only available on our cloud. So basically there are some features that are mostly targeting like when building the product, is it something for the engineer? Is it something for the company that the engineer is working at? And how can you create this, separation between the type of functionalities? And on the other hand, it's also a turnkey solution, right? You come to the cloud, you sign up, you get an API key, you can have a fully functional, notification center component and platform in less than 5 minutes inside of your application. We're self-hosted, you still get access to, everything that is there, but it requires a little bit more of a maintenance cost on the other side. Now, another element which we've found is some companies just cannot put, the communication layer outside of their own premises, right? Think about healthcare, think about banking, think about insurance. And this was something we didn't expect, as being an kind of an engine for us, but it came out to be as like we're the only one position to do this right now on the market is, you can have our cloud version, but you can also have an on-prem installation of the same enterprise features, which, we are powering by our kind of orchestration fleet, and we help you, with upgrade paths, etc. So this is like how we did it. I think there are different ways to approach this, and I think there is a great list of playbooks out there today. Even
Got it. Did you face any challenges, once you started monetization, or do you feel that that was like a smooth journey or a smooth transition for you?
Yeah. So one thing we did understand in the beginning, like it was really important for us to tell we are a commercial company. Like it's not for charity, to establish the baseline. We actually had a pricing page, I think more than like, you started a startup, you kind of try to invest in the core product areas. We didn't have billing on the platform for in the beginning, but we had a pricing page. It's like we were still not charging you money for it, but we are building this, and we created these expectations from the beginning. We are trying to build a long lasting business, and we're here for the long term, and we're trying to find a balance between a commercial viability but also being true to the open source community. So this is something, I can't say we are perfect, and we're still learning, and kind of we're trying to navigate our path into it, but I think setting the expectations from day one was very helpful for us.
So I think so the key was transparency and very open communication, so that the expectations were already set, and monetization wasn't like a shocker or a deviation from what you'd wanted to build.
Exactly. So it's kind of putting there in the first place. I think it's very, very helpful. And we've all seen scenarios where it kind of goes sideways with some companies that change the license in the middle. So, it creates a little bit more of a bad kind of feeling to the community in the end. So I would say transparency and upfront. And so, yeah, there's nothing bad about being upfront with your intentions.
Understood. So Dima, Novo is part of a very booming SaaS component ecosystem. It's in a very interesting space right now. So Stripe solved payments, Clerk solved authentication. What are some of the unique challenges that you feel that Novo is solving right now?
Yeah, so I think for us, when it comes to communication, this is where we also see ourselves part of the same ecosystem as you've mentioned. There is a few challenges. So obviously, of course, we want to create value in the communication and messaging space, right? How can we provide the best experience for, our customers and users, right? And how can we create an experience that maybe only the big companies like Facebook or Google investing, millions of dollars and huge teams solving. So this is, I would say, like identifying what are the best practices. How can we make notifications not only as a magnet for your attention? How can we make them actually meaningful? And we have, in our handbook, we are like the mission for Novo is to enable meaningful communication between products and their customer. Now, the second challenge of it, it's important for us that Novo feels like part of our users' application. we want to be as transparent as we can into just feels embedded and natural, like it's your product. And how can we communicate with the products around us? And we are currently working on a really cool integration with Clerk for our inbox. How can we make it seamless if we are in the presence of those tools inside of an application? How can we communicate between, let's say, Stripe webhooks to produce email notifications versus, Clerk webhooks to create password reset emails, and it all works in a seamless way. So like this is how we are interacting with those components, and how can we provide our unique value point through the journey.
Very interesting. So how do you see, the SaaS component ecosystem evolving in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you see that, we'll have more plug and play components for developers moving on?
Yeah, so I think it's always been like this. If you're looking at like the start of civilization, you mentioned previously we've been doing some baking with Tomer, and we had a baking blog, and we've been like really into wheat and bread production. And in the end, the story of food and society is a little bit. You have people who are specializing in a very specific set of areas. So to me, like in the SaaS and software industry, it's very similar. You have companies that are hyper specializing, I think, in a very specific problem that they're solving in. What is changing right now, in my opinion, is there is the whole ecosystem of builders, which we're seeing that is growing quite significantly. And when they're building products, they want to focus on the core problem they want to solve, and they don't want to reinvent messaging, authentication, etc. And I think this is where the SaaS and plug and play components playing a very crucial role, I would say, of delivering value.
Very interesting. What is your roadmap, and where do you see Novo in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so for us, like I think we're still, as I mentioned this to you previously, for us it's providing meaningful communication and to create those channels that we want to use notifications as a communication mechanism and engine, right? So we see it as a fully remote company. We're sometimes limited by the quality of the notification systems inside of the software we are using, right? So we are communicating via Slack, via Notion comments, linear comments. And sometimes if those systems provide a bad experience, it actually hurts our ability to communicate with each other, as people, right? So we are trying to really create an experience that is seamless, and it really empowers communication between people using software, and also between the software that is trying to communicate to those users. And one of the areas that we figure out is a really critical piece of this philosophy and story for our end is the concept of the inbox, right? And this is the place where you are as a user, you are coming to it. I'm personally using the inbox as like my personal to-do list, right? Like this is where right now I'm in focus, I'm inside Figma or Notion or Linear. What requires my attention? And we really want to become this place where people can come into and they can basically, be productive with notifications. And we're putting a lot of emphasis on the inbox component.
Yeah. I think very, very unique take on, notifications, and how instead of viewing it as a hindrance, how can you use it as a productivity tool? I think that's an amazing problem to solve. Um, so Dima, moving on to the next section, I think all discussions feel incomplete without speaking about AI. And I think AI is breaking down barriers in software development as well. People who've not really don't have like a lot of technical skills are now building and shipping products. I recently heard a term that people are using is vibe coding. So when you don't know coding, but you still
Yeah.
you have these tools at your disposal and you are coding, right? So what are some surprising trends that you are seeing, and how do you feel that this will reshape the industry?
Yeah, so I think there is happening, like some sort of a democratization of software and tools. And my motivation was I want to build things. What do I need to learn to build things, right? And it was a little bit different than, okay, also with my co-founder Tomer, like, oh, we want to build this cool app. We have to learn Angular JS or Node.js, like to make okay, let's do it. And I think what happens right now is the democratization happens of more builders can come and build their ideas. And I think this is a fantastic thing for the industry, which we're giving more people the ability to be engaged with their creativity, with their vision, with what they want to do. To me, like the role we are playing in this part, is again, they might be creating their unique story with their unique product. To me, it's just kind of really a democratization of this ability to create things in the digital realm, which I think is a very welcomed concept.
Very, very powerful change, as you mentioned, right? ensuring that anyone who has creativity or has a thought, they're able to translate it into like a product without having the necessary trainings. So I think very, very interesting times ahead.
Yes, exactly.
Dima, do you also feel that, AI is changing the way developers search for and adopt new tools?
Yeah, 100%. We're also seeing it with Novo. We're starting month by month, quite a significant increase in referrals from places like Perplexity, ChatGPT. I personally as well, when I'm looking for things, I kind of sometimes I go and search on Google and it feels like, the old days. It can be so much more powerful just to explain your problem, and it's a very niche problem, and kind of get the suggestions. I think, yes, like the way developers are searching for software is going to change. I think brand will play a much more crucial role. And I think also the ability to kind of pinpoint and find the exact tool you need for your specific problem, right? Much faster is to me, that's what's happening in the future.
Interesting. So Dima, you've built like a really strong brand around Novo. What would your advice be for a DevTool founder who's trying to build, awareness and credibility in the developer community space? Now that, we've discussed that how developers are becoming aware of tools, how they're searching, etc., is changing. How have you managed to build such a big brand and build so much awareness?
It's persistence, I would say. Showing up daily and keeping with what you do, and like this authenticity of trying to find your character and what are the strong values you believe in. It's not only about what are you doing inside of the company. Our kind of core value was our handbook is public, and with the team it's not a question of should something be public or not. So this was something that we try to put in a lot of the things we're doing, also in our marketing material and areas. And I think we were able to find partners along the way. But if I would narrow it down, I think it's persistency and keeping consistent with the story you are telling, and kind of making sure that you are living it, not only speaking about it.
Understood. So you have been a serial entrepreneur, as we discussed, in the beginning, that this is your third, startup. So what keeps you excited about building new things, and what keeps you going?
Yeah. So to me, this is like solving problems and pain points to the customer, like, seeing, as you're able to relieve or save time or solve a specific problem, it kind of keeps me really happy. I don't know, it kind of feels energy back to me, seeing these moments of delight inside of our users, and also learning. Like I really like to learn. It's something that, fills me very strongly and provides me a lot of motivation. So when entering, when we started the whole open source, it was the first time we've done an open source company. It was the first time we've done a fully remote company. So there is a lot of learning that we're still doing up until this day. And I think those two things are really the strongest motivators for me personally. In going.
So I think a lot of companies that, I am also sort of learning about and speaking are mostly remote. Do you feel any challenges, while working in a remote setup? And how do you encourage collaboration, and how do you make sure that, everyone is on the same page?
One of the biggest problems I've seen is that companies are trying to replicate Office in a remote environment, and they're trying to get to the same principles, maybe sometimes even the same types of people under a different environment. And I think this is the wrong way to look at it. Like, done quite a lot of different, there is the obvious things like people doing like the company offsites we're doing in person and trying to gather like random gatherings of smaller teams. And we are happy to participate in that. Into we're using something called Gather, which is a really fun tool that we adopted. It's like some sort of a virtual game, which is kind of an office. So, you just see people inside of your area or people in the meeting room chatting. You kind of get a sense of belonging. In the end, it's kind of, you have to create a core center passion for the problem you're trying to solve. And I think once you have that and getting the right people on the team to facilitate that, that's, really helpful.
As you said, this is the first time you're building a remote first company, and your previous ventures have all been on site. So, what was your motivation? Why did you choose to build this remote?
It really came hand to hand with open source. We have multiple people who are working and work with us are from the open source community. So, and second of all, which is a little bit more important, we thought that if we want to solve communication problems, we kind of have to put ourselves in the most difficult, I would say, scenario, right? So we can truly experience the impact of a good notification center, of a good email, like how does it provide value for us? And it's really helpful for us to understand how can we improve our product and our communication between each other. So those are the two main, I would say, reasons for us to go remote.
So you're living the problem to solve it, and to understand it more deeply.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it as, a problem in terms of communication. To me, it's a little bit more of this is just the way that I strongly believe we're becoming kind of a more connected in a global world. And I think just to be in those shoes and experience this, to us, it's like, it's also a challenge, but it also creates so much, benefits and so much upside things that we couldn't, I couldn't work with the best people I've ever worked with in my life because they're living in, in India, in Greece, in Poland. And it's just such a huge opportunity for us.
Understood. If you were to launch another SaaS component startup today, what problem would you pick up and how would you tackle it?
I would say experience or like the product marketing type of things. We are using multiple tools. We have the changelog, the roadmap.
Yeah.
We're using some in-product, banners and tools to communicate with our users and those types of areas. I feel like, it's still, I couldn't find like a good solution for us. So I think there is a lot of realms in kind of the modern or like PLG movement for product marketing, which a lot of those challenges are unmet.
Interesting take. Thanks, Hima. I think this has been an amazing conversation. But before we wrap up, let's have a quick, fun, rapid fire round. Are you ready for that?
Yes, let's do it.
What's one dev tool that you can't live without?
I think I would say linear. It's become a house for us.
Got it. What's one best advice you've received as a founder?
It might take the same time to build dollar business and a $5 million business. It might be the same 5 years or 6 years. So I think that's one that stuck with me.
If you could steal one growth playbook from another startup, whose would it be?
So to me, there is the wave of, I mentioned linear previously, and I think focus around quality. This is something that, I personally feel very well connected to.
Great. What is one last thing that you Googled?
It's a good question. I told you before, I'm not Googling anymore. I'm ChatGPTing it. But I'm learning about sailing right now. So I've probably searched something related to sailing and physics of sailing.
Very interesting. What's a tech trend that you feel is completely overhyped?
AI.
Oh, is it? But you're the one who uses ChatGPT.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not that it's a powerful, thing. I think like there is a hype happening there. There is a lot of value behind it, but I think it's definitely overhyped.
If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur or investor, who would it be?
I think Elon Musk, like it's a personality that curiouses me. It would be an interesting conversation, I guess.
Sure. What's one thing most people get wrong when they're trying to do open source?
Oh, I think focusing on technology too much and not about a problem they're trying to solve or building a good product out of it. It's not only about code. It's not only about the technical aspects of it. Kind of the core product and problem solving has to be there.
If you could instantly solve one challenge at Novo, what would that be?
I would say communication. This is funny as it sounds. I think, we are always trying to figure out how can we communicate more effectively. Say, like if there was a magic one to fix that, we would definitely use it.
Dima, this was such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.